Hello and welcome to the Rugby Roundup, October 10th, 2024. I am Big Mike here at Big Mike Sports. Welcome to the Roundup. Now let's talk some rugby. In this week's episode, we'll be talking WXV coming into its final round this weekend. Also, what's been happening in club rugby around the world. But before then, as always, if you have any games or competitions you'd like me to talk about here on the Rugby Roundup, please let me know. Best places to do that are on YouTube at Big Mike Sports and on Instagram at Big Mike Sports NZ. Now let's get to the Roundup. We are going to start with women's internationals this week with the WXV in its second week of 3. As we know, this is a very quick competition. Groups of 6 play 3 games each. Whoever's at the top of the table after that is declared the winner. Now, WXV 1 happening currently in Canada. First game of the weekend. USA 14, France 22. After 49 minutes, this one was 22-0 to the French. USA scoring a couple of tries late after the game was over. Well, good work for France. 1 win from 2. USA currently have no wins. Now, Canada-Ireland, one of my big 3 last week. Canada winning this one 21-8 to remain undefeated. It was 21-3 at halftime. Another big deficit at the half. Ireland winning the second half 5-0 after Canada let their feet remove themselves from the accelerator. But Canada undefeated. Ireland are now 1 from 2 after beating New Zealand last week. In the big game this weekend, or last weekend, according to some, England versus New Zealand, the Red Roses winning this one 49-31 over the Black Ferns. New Zealand scoring the first try, but then being behind 22-12 at halftime. New Zealand have not had a victory so far in the WXV. England undefeated going into this weekend with a big date with Canada. In WXV 2, big game there over the weekend. The host South Africa went down to Australia 33-26. In other results, Wales 5, Italy 8, and Japan 13, Scotland 18. All of these games very nice and close. Scotland versus Australia this week. Australia currently sitting on 10 points, Scotland on 8. But South Africa, if they can get a good win over Italy, will put themselves in first before Australia takes on Scotland. In WXV 3, the Battle of the Super Minnows. It was Madagascar versus Hong Kong. We weren't sure what was going to happen after both teams suffered big defeats in the week before. Final score in this one, Madagascar 7, Hong Kong 38. And a bit of an upset, Samoa got a huge victory, 45-17 over the Fijians. And Spain continued their winning ways, 20-0 over the Dutch. Wow. Netherlands and Madagascar remain winless, but the Netherlands do have a game against Hong Kong this week. And it will be Spain versus Fiji and Samoa versus Madagascar to determine the top spots. Spain currently sitting at 9 points, Samoa on 7. There was a men's game over the weekend that might be interesting. Early stages of South American and America's qualifiers. Chile 36 over Brazil 10. Now to club rugby. Final in the women's Farah Palmer Cup in New Zealand. It was Waikato versus Canterbury. This one finished 27-25 to the winners, claiming their first ever championship, Waikato, after a great dominant victory with just one loss to Canterbury. This one was 17 all at half-time. Very tense in the last 10 minutes. The defense holding out in the end for the Mooloo ladies. In the NPC, it was the final round. The top 8 has now been determined. In the Ranfurly Shield, Tasman lost to Taranaki, 42-29. Not just taking the shield, but also first place. Tasman finishing in third. But it wasn't Taranaki that went to the top, it was Wellington, after a dominant 46-28 victory over Hawke's Bay. Other interesting results, Canterbury 36 over Waikato 19 to make sure that they get their spot in the playoffs, and Counties Manukau 45-26 victory over Manawatu to finish in 8th place. Difference between Counties and Otago in the end were a couple of bonus points. In the URC, 3 teams remain undefeated, these being Irish team Leinster, who bet Benetton from Italy 35-5, the Lions from South Africa winning 55-21 over Edinburgh, and the Bulls, also from South Africa, 47-21 over Ulster. Now remember that the Lions and the Bulls have played one less game due to the final of the Currie Cup taking place in the first week of the URC. The 3 winless teams after this round, Benetton, Edinburgh and Scarlets. Other interesting results, Munster 23-0 over Ospreys, and Glasgow, last year's champions, 52-36 over Cardiff. To the French top 14, Toulouse suffered another loss, 23-28, with Castres coming out on top. The top of the table, Bordeaux, defeated Bayonne 30-27, and La Rochelle, the other dominant team currently, 43 over 22 to Lyon. Montpellier and Vannes are at the bottom of the table with 1 win each. In the English Premiership, Saracens are now the unbeaten team at the top after a 29-14 victory over Exeter. The Bristol Bears defeated Bath 36-26, and a Michael Checker-less Leicester defeated Newcastle 42-10. Winless teams after this round, Exeter and Newcastle. And for our friends here in Australia, Super Rugby squad, the Western Force, as part of their tour, went down to an emerging Ireland squad, 29-24. Well, now to our fun fact of the week. Little bit of research after Sam Cane, the mighty All Black, hit 100 international games recently. 98 players in total have hit this mark, including players from most of the Tier 1 nations, as well as Romania, Georgia, Russia, and Portugal. Will the 100th player to hit 100 internationals happen in the next month and a half? Let's wait and see. I'll let you know if it happens. Now let's preview the upcoming week in rugby, starting with internationals. Final round of the WXV. WXV1, the main event, the final match of the entire thing. In Canada, it will be Canada versus the dominant England. The winner of this will be the winner of WXV1. Can the Canadians do it? Can they cause the upset? Or will this incredible dominance from the Red Roses of England continue? Also, fun fact, I just saw the draw for next year's Women's World Cup will be happening on the 17th of October. I'll let you know all the results when we find out. Continuing in WXV1, France will be taking on the winless Black Ferns of New Zealand. And the other winless team, the United States of America, will be taking on Ireland. In WXV2, the final game of WXV2, it will be Australia versus Scotland, most likely for the whole thing. Scotland are defending champions of WXV2, and Australia will want to prove a point. After they were in WXV1 last year, and they didn't make it, losing their qualifiers to Canada, New Zealand, and the United States. Other big games, or other games in WXV2, the host South Africa taking on Italy. If South Africa get a big win, they will end up in first place before that final game. and also Wales versus Japan. In WXV3, this one's a bit fiddly. First of all, the winless Netherlands will be taking on Hong Kong. Now, it will be Samoa versus Madagascar. Most likely a bonus point victory to Samoa, not ruling out Madagascar, of course, but we're just looking at form, which will take them from 7 points on the table to 12. Fiji currently have 5 points. If Fiji get a bonus point victory over Spain and Samoa lose with no bonus points, they will win the competition. That is highly unlikely. If Samoa do get that bonus point, they'll be 3 points ahead of Spain on the table, which means that the Spanish ladies will need to beat the Fijian ladies. If there is a draw, if there is a loss for Spain, Samoa will take this with a big victory over Madagascar. What a fun final round in all 3 levels of the WXV. Now moving into club rugby, starting in New Zealand, where we are getting juicy in the quarterfinals of the NPC. After 9 rounds, it will be first place Wellington taking on the 8th place Counties Manukau. Remembering that a couple of weeks ago, Counties were in their heritage strip, got a huge victory, 51-12. It will be 4th place Bay of Plenty taking on the 5th place Hawke's Bay. Hawke's Bay have been going further and further into obscurity since losing their shield. Can they bounce back in the Battle of the Bays for a spot in the semi-finals? 2nd place Taranaki will be taking on 7th place Waikato. Another derby here. In round 5, Taranaki won this one 25-19. Final quarter-final, a 3rd derby of the weekend. Fantastic. The Crusaders teammates, 3rd place Tasman taking on the 6th place Canterbury. In round 2, this was 22-7 to Tasman. What's going to happen? This is going to be a great round of footy in New Zealand. In the URC, the unbeaten Leinster will be taking on Munster. This one is the derby. This one is the big one this weekend. Other games in round 4, unbeaten Bulls will be taking on Ospreys, and the unbeaten Lions will be taking on the Dragons. Oh, wouldn't mind seeing that in animal form, but we get to watch it in rugby form. In the top 14 in France will be round 6. The only game between 2 top 6 teams will be the 4th place Toulouse versus the 6th place Clermont. But at the other side of the table, the 2 bottom teams, Montpellier and Vannes, are going head to head this weekend. In England's Premiership, in round 4, last unbeaten team Saracens will be taking on Harlequins, and 2 teams that are 2 from 3, Leicester and Northampton, will be having a big old battle. Now, things to look forward to. In 9 weeks, the Champions Cup starts. In 8 weeks, the Sevens start. And in 2 weeks' time, the international season kicks off again for the big boys as New Zealand travel to Japan. Now, for this week's Big 3, if you've only got time to watch one, follow one, see one, make sure it's one of these guys. This is what I believe anyway. Obviously, the quarterfinals in the NPC are going to be very exciting, but my big 3 for the weekend. In WXV2, Australia versus Scotland for the championship. In the URC, the local derby. Leinster, Munster, a Battle of Ireland. And the final game in the big 3, WXV1, Canada versus England. This is for dominance in the WXV to crown yourselves champions. What a weekend of rugby we have to look forward to this weekend, boys and girls. Wow. Anyway, thank you so very much for listening to the Rugby Roundup. And as always, my friends, have a beautiful week and watch some beautiful rugby.